Save the Children is currently working in with children with links to ISIS in 2 camps in North East Syria. So those are called al-Hawl and al-Roj camps. We know that there are more than 60 British children present in North East Syria. In the 2 camps where foreign families are present, and also in the potentially in the urban areas around it. The 60 British children are a small cohort of the almost 9,000 foreign children that there are in northeast Syria at the moment. So it's quite a chaotic situation, and the exact numbers of children, the exact numbers of which children are from which country is very difficult to ascertain in those conditions. The vast majority of the 60 children are present with their mothers. We've been working in those camps for quite some time now, over the last couple of years, and we were working in a 3rd camp with this population, Ionisa camp, but in mid-October of this year, that camp was evacuated in the chaos of the Turkish incursion. In the 2 camps that we are working in currently, we deliver life-saving assistance to the children and women there, so that includes distributing, shelter materials, non-food items, the things that keep these children and their mothers alive, really. But we also have set up child-friendly spaces, so kind of spaces where children can have a break from the stress of the conditions of the camp and just be children and play and do some learning and that kind of thing. On top of that, we run some nutrition services, and we do child protection specialist support. So for children who are particularly vulnerable, we have case management staff that work with those children to deal with the specific issues that they have. And we also run interim care centres for children who are separated or unaccompanied, where there is not an adult to take care of them. Approximately 9,000 foreign children who are present in northeast Syria. More than half of them are under 5 years of age, and we expect that the same pattern applies really across the board for half, if not even the majority of these children. They will have been born in Syria, and they'll have no memory of life outside of this conflict. All of the children within the camps are under the age of 12, or almost all of them. It's just not possible for these children to remain in these camps or in northeast Syria. For very many of them, they don't even share a language with the people around them. They have no way of accessing any kinds of services. The majority of children, their births have not been registered. They have no access to documentation. And even as things change within Syria, there's no way of telling if they'll ever be able to access any kind of services there, or even be recognized as existing in that context. And so they're at real risk of statelessness. They're very vulnerable to disease, to illness, to the kinds of illnesses that could be easily treated outside of Syria, could be very dangerous and destructive, and even in some cases fatal. So the conditions in the camp are, I think it's safe to say, pretty dire. In the 2 camps are quite different. Roj camp is much smaller. It has a much smaller population, maximum a couple of thousand people, whereas al-Hawl camp, which was originally set up to host a maximum of approximately 10,000 people, due to a large influx of population in the early months of this year, expanded massively to have to cope with a population of around 70,000 in the space of a few weeks. So as you can imagine, the severe overcrowding greatly increased the risk of communicable diseases. We know that up to 300 children have died either en route or at al-Hawl camp already this year, and cases of malnutrition and disease are still being reported every day. Save the Children would like to see the UK government really take urgent action to bring all of the British children home. The current stance in the British government is that they will do what they can to bring unaccompanied and orphaned children back, and that they will look at other children who are with their mothers on a case-by-case basis. And we welcome this position, because we were disappointed by the lack of UK action in the earlier months of this year when things were calmer in the northeast. So that's been a positive shift in position. We've seen some concerns from the UK government about the safety and security of the area, about the logistical challenges that the repatriation presents. But what we say to that is, we have seen journalists come in and out of this region. We have humanitarian actors on the ground. We can see that it's possible. Last month in October 2019, the government of Turkey undertook an incursion into northeast Syria and really changed the situation as well as politically and militarily in the region. The impact that this has on the camps and the possibility for repatriation is that it makes it very unpredictable as to what's going to happen in the coming weeks and months. So, as I said, currently the camps and the border crossing remain under the control of the Kurdish authorities, as they have been for the last several months and more. But we don't know how long that will hold on for. And another armed actor or the government of Syria could, in fact, come to be in charge of that area in coming months. That would involve a huge shift in the ability of governments to be able to engage with those actors, to have knowledge of and access to their citizens, and the possibility, the window of repatriation might close. We just really don't know. We know that more than 600 people have been repatriated to more than 20 countries this year alone, and a number of countries have taken back children. So the US has repatriated its citizens and continues to do so for any new citizens it becomes aware of. Other countries such as Norway, Sweden, Germany, and France have made steps to repatriate orphans. So they do have children and citizens remaining in the camps. Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Uzbekistan, Australia, you name it, as I say, more than 20 countries. It certainly has been proved to be possible for these children to be brought home and to be reintegrated within their societies. So the Kurdish authorities who remain in control of the camps where these foreign children are present have called on other governments to repatriate their nationals. And what those governments need to do now is to reach out to the Kurdish authorities and to make arrangements for the practical repatriation. We've seen cases with repatriations earlier this year in which officials from European and other governments entered northeast Syria, an hour's drive from the border with Iraq, and had a meeting with Kurdish officials and were able to come to an agreement about how the women and children that they wanted to bring home would be extracted from the area. We have humanitarian actors present on the ground who drive these routes. We have officials who drive these routes. We have media journalists who drive these routes. It can be done in a day. The camps can be reached. Most, if not all, of the children that are in the camps will have lived through extremely distressing experiences. They're likely to have witnessed violence and experienced deprivation and exploitation throughout their short lives. For many of them, they'll have no memory of a life outside of Syria and conflict. And the impact of that is certainly visible on the children. Our staff have reported signs of psychological distress amongst the children in the camps, fear of noises, fear of planes, being afraid to go to sleep and having difficulty interacting with other children, etc. So sad to say that absolutely there is a psychological impact of what they've lived through. Having said that, they also at the same time can see the progress children can make through having access to areas like child-friendly spaces and outlets in the camp to get away from that and to have some sense of normality. And they do notice progress in children when they do have access to that. But of course, in the conditions of the camp and the situation, the levels of access that humanitarian actors have, that is quite minimal. And so that's one of the reasons why we're saying this camp is no place for a child, and they won't be able to recover fully in any real sense while remaining in those conditions. On the physical side of things, very many of these children had no access to medical care when they were living in ISIS-held areas, and even now in the camps themselves, access to medical care is very, very limited. There was bombing on the Baghouz regime in the final days of the offensive, and many of the children bear the marks of that violence with explosive weapon-related injuries, etc. The kinds of injuries that can't be treated in Northeast as is now. So, yeah, sad to say that it's quite a dramatic impact on these children, the majority of whom, of course, are extremely young and vulnerable to even the smallest illness in the camp. It's quite dangerous for them at that age. Upon return, given the experiences that these children have lived through inside Syria, they're going to need specialized support to recover, to reintegrate, and to really just be able to be children again, and just to be able to enjoy their childhood, to go back to school, and to be able to fulfill all their potential. So we know that there are a number of specialised actors in the UK who can support the government in this. We've seen examples from other countries where multidisciplinary teams with psychologists and experts in social services, etc., have come together to prepare for the return of these children. We would like to see a similar effort from the UK government. We absolutely have the expertise, resources, and capacity in the UK to achieve this. This is 60, we're talking about approximately 60 very young children who just need care and protection and the ability to recover. The vast majority of children in this area are, of course, Syrian, and so they're going to need all of the support that they can get to recover from this conflict, which is now in its 9th year. What people can do to support that is to call on their governments to continue to fund humanitarian programming on the ground, to continue to use all available resources to work to see an end to this conflict. So, for example, the UK at the UN Security Council needs to be ensuring that the Syrian conflict remains on the agenda. For families that are affected by this and have loved ones that they believe to be present in North East Syria, my advice would be that they reach out to the Foreign Office and make a formal request for consular assistance. In recent weeks and months, the Foreign Secretary has come out to say that he does believe that the British government should be taking efforts to bring home these children, and so it is really within the power of that office to be making connections with the British authorities and to be putting the logistical elements into play that will enable these children to be brought home.